The floor is yours for 20 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for the organizer for the invitation. And we carry out network analysis of globalization using Trade and GDP and where stands BRICS. Okay, we started this work in 2015. Both of us obviously have Chinese origin. The reason for undertaking this is we noticed that 2010 is a big change in the Chinese economy, in the history of Chinese economy. 2010 is, we just barely recovered from the financial crisis, but in 2010, China consumers began to behave more and more like advanced countries. So you'll see the way they spend their money, go on holidays, taking credits, buy cars. So that's a fundamental change in 2010. So we take the interest to look at what is happening. We got some results actually. We think it's interesting. Okay, let's see if they are interesting. First, we look at the from International Monetary Fund. They have a table like this for international trade. So the countries in the column are the countries that export, and the countries in the row are the countries that import. So therefore, if you read this figure, for example, Algeria against Australia, then that sum is the amount that Algeria actually export to Australia. So the international trade system actually can easily be presented as a network in such a case, because as well as Algeria is linked to Australia, Australia is also linked to oh, I didn't. Sorry. Second, Algeria is also linked to Australia. So therefore, import and export could form the edges of the network, and that forms the basis of our study. And of course, in order for the figures to represent some kind of meaningful quantity, we have to renormalize them. So therefore, when in the following, when I start talking about increase or decrease, this is not real increase or not real decrease. It's because by this reweighting, what we mean is the percentage that the country is taking up in the international system. Okay, even if you are growing, let's say, but you grow below the average speed of all the countries, then you appear to be shrinking in this table because of this reweighting. Okay, so therefore we have to be very careful about the conclusions we draw from this network. And the data is taken from 1980 to 2018. Well, this study is quite closely related to China, because 1980 is the time when China joined WTO, and subsequently caused havoc in the international system. And until last year, we had Brexit, we had Trump become president. So they all have one degree or the other, I think, with the rise of the BRICS. The 5 countries, all of them, yeah? Of course, China being the largest among the 5. So therefore, there is something deeper in there, we believe. We can only find 71 countries. The complete trading data between 1980 and 2014. So there are a number of countries which are excluded. Unfortunately, these 71 countries are all the quite major economies, yeah, like all the European countries, America, and all the large countries in Asia. So the remaining countries probably are, well, they probably didn't bother to report to the International Monetary Fund. Okay, so therefore we consider that this should give roughly a picture of what is happening over the world during the last 30 some years. 30 some years. And of course, the data is divided between 1980 and 2010. That's the year when we believe, as Chinese, people have Chinese links, think that they reached the peak. Okay. After 2010, you begin to see the land prices, the salary levels of China drives manufacturing out to India, to Vietnam, and also many of them return to mainland. Okay, I mean, I remember a BBC program in 2012 presenting some, actually some manufacturers returning to the mainland, back to Britain. So, so therefore, 2010 is a very important time. So we study the time between 1980 and 2010. Then we kind of just did an additional study to add in the figures from 2011 to 2014 to see what changes it has caused.
What is the evidence, the quantitative evidence of this reindustrialization? One second, you see? I mean, your point, this third point, that you see reindustrialization starting from...
Yeah, that's what I say. The rising of Chinese salaries and the land prices drives manufacturing out of China. Mm-hmm. And many of them begin to return to Britain. So there were, in 2012, there were some BBC programs representing manufacturers. They said they had enough of China, they charge us too much, and it's better that
but behind the anecdotal evidence, you have also quantitative evidence for that?
That is not sure. Okay. So this is intuition, because as I said, this study is very much linked to the closer knowledge of both of us to China. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so therefore we can't say this is definitely the international trend, but there's some interesting results. We'll see. You probably say something. Okay, we'll see as we go on. Okay, so we take the nominal GDP data for the 71 countries. We take the international trade network, but we didn't look at these links. How do they develop and how do they? Because we feel it's a difficult quantity to study. They simply mean the related trading data. So we try to link this with the GDP figures and to see if there's some hidden information there to tell us something more than just the trading. So of course, in order to do that, we need to introduce a few different centralities linked with the concept of the network, because they all have different economic interpretations. So I write a bit more than prepared for 20 minutes because I saw the presentation was for 30 minutes, so I go a little bit faster. So the first list is the three centralities: the degree centrality, eigenvector centrality, and the random walk centrality. So there are three different measures of how a particular node, like a country, like China or the USA, do they sit in this network. Okay. The degree centrality is a very simple one. So you take the trade between two countries. If it is export, then it's the one direction. If it's import, it's the other direction. So these numbers are given in for each pair of these countries. Here there are 71 countries listed, and of course we reweight them. So therefore we have to be very careful about when we talk about something is growing or something is decreasing. If we talk about increasing, that will mean the overall percentage in the world has been increasing. Okay, and also they are equal weighted. So there's no particular weight attributed to US or China or whatever. So every country is regarded as having the same weight. And of course, if we use degree centrality, we just know that how important this country is in terms of how much he sell and how much he buy from other countries. Yeah, so the total export and total import. Okay, so therefore there's a problem with this because degree centrality in the international trade network, because they treat every country the same, they didn't measure one country's centrality in the network without considering who its trading partners are. Now, why the trading partners are important is because if you trade with a much stronger country, then your trading relationship tends to be more stable. If you take that out of consideration, then you just look at the overall quantity, you might trade with a large number of very fragile countries, and then if anything happens in the world, then your trade will collapse. So therefore, degree centrality is not the only quantity that we want to look at. So the next quantity we want to look at is eigenvector centrality. Eigenvector centrality is actually different from degree in the sense that it comes out from the first eigenvector and the first eigenvalue of the trade matrix. Okay. In that case, because it represents the first eigenvalue and the first associated eigenvector, it represents not only the pure trade figures between countries, it also takes the strength of its trade neighbors into consideration. So if you have, for example, if a country has more trade with US, the largest trading country in the world up to a certain time, you will have a better strength in terms of eigenvector centrality. And if you do not trade, for example, with US, you trade with many other smaller countries, then your eigenvalue tend to be smaller. So this is an intricate measure of how trade is carried out with neighbors. Okay. That's the importance of eigenvector centrality. Well, of course, if we have eigenvector out centrality, we also have eigenvector in centrality, which is just from the side of imports, because the trade network is not a symmetric one. You sell X amount to A sells XY amount of money to goods to country B. It doesn't necessarily mean B will sell the opposite amount to you. Okay, so therefore it's not a symmetric matrix. Apart from in centrality, you also have out centrality. Okay. Then you have random walk centrality, which is this is slightly less intuitive than the degree and eigenvector. Okay. This is based on a game theory, so amount of US dollars starting from a country in the network, and at each step it randomly moves along the edges of the trade network. And if we denote the probability that the flow of the value is at the country I at step t, then the random walk centrality is defined as this probability is the average value of summing of all the countries that export to your country divided by the degree centrality, out centrality. Okay. And then times the probability at the previous time step. So this can be addressed as an additional measure, which is not too important for us anyway. So let's move on to the first study. Before we start, we carried out the normalization of GDP as well. So beyond the trade figures, we also normalize GDP. So when we talk about the growth of a country, then its growth has to be higher than the international average. Otherwise, it's declining. Even if it is growing, it's recorded as declining. Okay. And the classification of the countries, well, because we only have 71. We don't have the data from every single country, so we divide them into two groups, and we took a particular point in time so that we look at GDP per capita per person. Okay, and among the 71 countries, there are about 35 of them have relatively higher GDP per capita. And also, there are about 30 or 31 of them belong to the group with relatively lower GDP per capita. So basically, we are looking at each individual in those countries. If they fall into the top half, then they go to group 1. If they fall into the second half, they go to group 2. Okay, so therefore this is divided according to GDP per capita. This is different from the overall GDP. We are working on GDP, overall GDP. But we divide those countries according to GDP per capita. So mostly, I didn't bring all the names because it's boring. Mostly the first group are the European countries, America and that. And also the second group mostly constitutes of China and the relatively underdeveloped countries. Okay? After dividing that, we mainly discuss what? We mainly discuss first the correlation between out centrality and in centrality. We want to look at the relation between out, export, and import. And second, we look at the centralities and their relationship with the corresponding GDP. Okay? We look for common traits. We are not establishing an absolute statistical criteria. to see which is advanced behavior, which is not advanced behavior. What we do is we look at the first 35 countries and second 35 countries, and look at if there's anything common among them. And if there is, then that is summarized as the characterization for that group. Okay? So everything is relative. Now, first we look at 1980 to 2010. As I said, I mean, this study is somehow motivated by our view of China. So that is really the development from entering the World Trade Organization to the time where it seems to achieve this peak. Okay. So the first, we look at the correlation between in-centrality and out-centrality. We just look at the group 1 and group 2. Group 1 means the countries that have relatively high per person GDPs. And group 2 means those countries that have relatively low GDP per capita. Okay? And so, for example, we look at the significant rate. So we're going to use some statistical criteria, and we notice that the in-centrality and out-centrality have certain degree of significance. And for group 1, this is 83%. For group 2 is 80%. So therefore, so this is for random walk. Sorry, for random walk. Yeah. So this is how the money is flowing within the network. And then, if we look at eigenvector centrality, this is not only how much you export and import, and also what your partners are. Okay, this is a bit biased kind of measure. Then we can begin. Well, for the random walk, there's not much difference. Yeah, 83 and 80%. But if you look at how important your neighbors are, then the significance rate begin to change considerably. For group 1, that is for the countries that have relatively high GDP per capita, the significant rate reaches 94%. That means there are lots of trade between the relatively rich nations. Okay? And if you look at the significant rate for group 2, it becomes 80%. So this is a quite significant drop in terms of percentages. And if you look at degree centrality, which is purely the trade amount, then in that case there's also a significant difference. So for group 1, you have 88%, almost 90%, and for group 2, you only have 77%. So therefore, you begin to tell the different behaviors of relatively developed countries and relatively underdeveloped countries. Okay. And then once we understand that, well, as I said, the random walk centrality, it doesn't show much difference. Okay, it is the degree, how much you trade, and also the eigenvector, so what your trade partners are important in this story. For the 3 different centrality, well, this is kind of a summary. Most of the 71 countries have significant positive correlation between in and out, obviously. Okay, most of the nations would have a positive link between export and import. Okay, export go up, import goes up. Just say the goes up or goes down means the relative percentage in the world, not just the absolute figures. Okay, that's important. So that means if you grow more important in the world, your export becomes more important, then your import is also become relatively more important. Okay, but of course the difference between group 1 and group 2 is that group 1 seems far more correlated and group 2 seems much less correlated. Okay. And the eigenvector centrality, which is basically taking into your trading neighbors, not 2 countries are closer, but do more trade, yeah, has the highest significant rate difference, since one country's eigenvector centrality has taken into account of the centralities of its partners. So this one is particularly significant among the relatively rich nations and the relatively poor nations. Okay. Now we look at the GDP and the centrality. Again, it's between 1980 and 2010. If we just do regression, we do in-centrality regression against the GDP. Okay, and we carry out the GDP. Then again, we begin to see the differences between how do they deal with in and out. Okay, for example, for group 1, the difference for yin against GDP is 77%, significance rate here in the regression, not the beta coefficients and so on, just a significant rate. And out is 86%. And if you look at group 2, then 77 and 68. What's the difference between here? Well, for group 1 countries, in is 77 and out is 86. So therefore, they are more significant to out. That means relatively rich nations relies more on export. Well, the economy developed or not relies on export. Whereas for the developing countries, it's just the opposite. They more rely on imports. Okay, I mean this probably coincides with some of the economic theories saying that the relatively poor nations have the difficulty in establishing brands so that they can sell their goods at less premium, all that kind of thing. Okay, so relatively rich nations can establish a brand and selling their product with better qualities, better technologies, so they have more value addedness. So actually, this is all reflected in here. Okay, it's very interesting. For eigenvector, is the same. So here you see the tendency for relatively advanced countries, the the import versus GDP is 75, whereas the out is 88%. Okay, so therefore it's much more relying on higher value added exports. Okay, for the second groups, it's just opposite. Okay. For the degree centrality, again, it's the kind of same tendency. So therefore, it does tell us something. The correlation between GDP and centrality, the summary is, okay, the other centralities of countries of group 1 have a high probability of exhibiting significant correlation with GDP than the in-centrality. Okay, so we rely more on export than on import. Okay, for the developing countries, it's just the opposite. Okay. Well, this is the absolute number. We said for group 1 countries, we rely far more on import than on, export than import, okay, to develop our economies. And this is the number of the numbers rather than percentages. So since we do not have much time, we can jump that. So the weighted GDP for they all have a significant correlation with their import or export, but there's a significant difference between the group 1 and the group 2 countries. Okay, so this is what all this is about. We give some statistics about the P statistics and the correlation coefficients in summary, which for technical reasons they just take time. I just tell you the interesting observations between those countries. We said we are going to look at BRICS, and if you look at Brazil and South Africa, now these are the 2 countries in the BRIC groups that fail to exhibit significant correlation between the in-centrality and the out-centrality. Okay, Brazil and South Africa are the 2 countries that actually do not exhibit normal economic behaviors. So there's something out of ordinary about these 2 countries. And in light of the fact that most of the 71 countries exhibit significant correlation between in and out, it could be a signal that the economic structures of the 2 countries have very unique characters. Okay, this is Brazil and South Africa. China, India, and Russia, they all exhibit a very strong correlation between the in-centrality and out-centrality of all the 3 different measures. And an additional observation is on India. So in the test of eigencentrality, the correlation between in-centrality and out-centrality is significantly less than the results from the test for the other 2 centrality measures. Okay, so that says that its trading partners are quite strangely distributed. Okay, in light of the fact that the eigencentrality incorporates the trade value and the trade partners' importance, it suggests that India's export and import partners are different countries. Okay, So these are the essential estimates. So we highlighted between 1980 and 2010, China and Russia appears. This is an interesting result. I mean, China and Russia becomes very well entrenched in the world trading system. I think it's very hard to break that kind of link. Whereas India, South Africa, and Brazil have one or two drawbacks, okay, which of course you have to go into the economic structure of these countries. Okay. And so therefore this is more or less the same results that goes for 1980 to 2010, because my time is up. So the similar results holds for 2000, if we add in the data right up to 2014. The only thing is India has made a significant progress from if we add in the 2010 to 2014 data. China and Russia stays more or less the same, very entrenched in the international trade. India made a huge progress, and Brazil and Africa didn't do much, stays roughly the same. And, but there's another interesting thing which might be linked with the Brexit vote and Trump being being elected as president, is if we look at the random walk and the degree in centrality of countries in Group 1, now they have begun to have a high significant rate than the link with GDP, than that of the out centrality. They kind of, if we add in the data of 2010 to 2014, the developed countries have a tendency of being pushed a little bit into the underdeveloped range. One of them begin to show weakness. So this may have to do with the general feeling that people feel that we probably have a problem. We probably are doing less well. I don't know. I mean, this is, of course, we only look at the centrality and link with GDP. We didn't look into the social and political backgrounds of all this. But that seems to be coming out from the analysis. Okay, so if we add in 2010 to 2014, something has changed. And therefore, of course, in politics, things move slowly, and people begin to feel pressure, and then that turns into vote, probably 2 or 3 years later. So that is exactly what is happening. So this is what the story I want to tell you through this analysis, and I hope that you enjoy the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so time for questions, comments, remarks. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm thinking about these 2 countries, Brazil.
Yeah. Brazil and South Africa. Yeah.
What do you mean?
They do not follow the overall trend. For
Especially
example,
Brazil, why it's so?
Brazil is more like relying so heavily on imports. That is, I mean, it all contravenes, the data all contravene the real story, because Brazil tends to be an export country, we believe, right? Because it has resources. Whereas in real life, it's not. I mean, at least according to the figures reported, it's very weakly correlated. So it's different from most of the other countries.
Why you take into account this country in 71? Should be 69 probably.
Oh, you mean why should we? Well, we only have 71 countries. We don't have enough data. That is, we have data hunger,
Okay.
right? So we think 71 is already a very low figure from big data analysis point of view. So we just included everybody. I think in theory, in the classification, Brazil, Russia, China all belong to Group 2. So therefore, all the problems appear in Group 2. Of course, the Group 1 is a bit biased by places like Hong Kong, like Denmark, these tiny countries. So yeah, we can't say that exactly that is the exact picture, but it's interesting to look at the overall just very crude method. You begin to see the different behaviors.
Yeah. It's nice methodology. Methodology to analyze.
Thank you.
All right. Any question, maybe? right.
Some
Yeah.
forecasting?
Yeah, sure.
Some forecasting?
No, we didn't do forecasting.
next
Being a
year.
mathematician, no, we try to do forecasting. I got 2 or 3 PhD students working with me on prediction. We also feel that we can't produce a model that can predict things. So maybe it's my approach. So personally,
So the dynamics
yeah, I'm a bit slightly hesitate to say.
make some dynamic prediction.
Yeah, I have a problem in that. Yeah, it's because I come out from a person doing mechanics. You know, it's my main career.
This would be,
Changing this kind of thing. So there's a time to gradually, get into the field, and I still feel unconfident about making predictions using financial data.
because the evolving networks, this branch of network is very rapidly developing.
Yes,
So,
yes, yeah.
evolving network.
I hope I will learn.
I wish.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No other question, comments? Okay, thank you very much again for your presentation.